What's up, everybody? This is Zack. I'm back with another episode of EM Weekly. I planned to get an episode out last week, and for the first time in a long time, I screwed it up. The audio was unsalvageable, which was unfortunate because I thought it was going to be a good episode. And it doesn't really matter. It's dead to me, all right? I'm moving on. It is 2024. I am very excited this year. I think you're going to find, so what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about innovation. What is the stuff that I'm anticipating is going to happen in 2024 and where we're going to see improvements in our field, in the technology, and how we approach emergency management. I think 2024 is going to be a very exciting period for all of us. For us at the Readiness Lab specifically, we have a lot of really, really cool stuff that we're going to be doing in this year. We've got some new people that we'll be introducing in the near future. 2024 is great. We're off to a great start. I'm feeling good. We've already had disasters in my neck of the woods. We had a really significant wind event a couple days ago, which also prolonged getting an episode out. Just the weather around here, and I know everyone's probably saying the same thing, has been pretty wild and pretty extreme. Vermont's been impacted by one major flood event, one that was like pretty significant, not quite as bad as the one we had over the summer back in July, but still pretty substantial. And this occurred in December, mid-December. And we had a major wind event just the other day. Last year on Christmas weekend, we had a major wind event. We're just facing more and more of these types of disasters, and maybe it's cyclical with, El Nino or La Nina type of stuff. I know that does have an impact on us, and usually the sort of extremes in our weather, but just very weird weather. Tonight, we're expecting another pretty significant wind event. And we still have people who are without power from the last one. And we still have houses that were damaged. And in a couple cases, unfortunately, just in my literally half mile down the road, there was I think 4 houses destroyed by trees that fell down and crushed the house. So we have a really good, 2024 is going to be awesome, but I also know our job is getting more and more crucial and important. And it seems like the data shows disasters are more common. So I think all of us, as we go into this year, need to sort of reflect on how we've done things, how we plan to do things, and really push to do better. So when I started emergency management, over 10 years ago now, really, I think it's almost 15 years. I did some volunteer stuff when I was in college with emergency management stuff. I thought, my vision of what will this field look like a decade from now, I thought we would be in a totally different world. We'd be doing things with more technology, more advancement. ICS would shift around. We would have different ways to approach things. I remember reading Stanley McChrystal's book, Team of Teams, and just thinking why are we not using that decentralized, problem-solving approach to disasters instead of the very slow, bureaucratic, hierarchical, superstructured, fairly centralized approach of how we've done emergency management for a long time. But here we are, and it kind of doesn't really feel like we've moved the needle as much as I'd hoped to. So, but last year, I feel like we had just a insane amount of growth, especially in the last 6 months where AI came out of nowhere, and just changed how we do stuff. And all sorts of other new stuff was coming out. So we're going to talk about that today. Real quick, let's go to our sponsors. We've got some new ones. Also, if you haven't checked out our subscription service, We have 2 audio TTXs on there. There's a third one that's going to be going up next week. We're also going to be doing a live podcasting roundtable type of event. Keep an eye on your emails for that. Super exciting. So be right back.
The L3 Harris Extreme 400p radio solves problems and is specifically designed for emergency services. How do we know? We field tested it with medical, urban search and rescue, and collapsed and confined structures. This radio is amazingly tough. Check out the L3 Harris Extreme 400p radio at l3harris.com right now. If you served in the military, you've probably worn Proper Apparel. Proper Apparel is now reaching out to first responders and those who love the outdoors. Check out Proper Apparel, from the outdoors to the EOC, wear proper. How do you spell Doberman Emergency Management? EOP, OEP, HVA, HMP, Thyra, TTX, Drone, PDA. Whenever you need an expert, Doberman Emergency Management field experts are there for support. Contact an expert at DobermanEMG.com today.
Okay, we're back. I already wasted 5 minutes just on the introduction and talking about the why I think we need to fix stuff. I'm really trying to keep my episodes faster. A, because editing them is kind of a pain in the butt. But 2, because I think I want to do more episodes versus really big ones. So I'm going to try to shoot for 30 minutes. But anyway, so let's start with 2024. What am I anticipating? AI is obviously, I am an AI evangelist. I have been using it for everything for the last, really since ChatGPT came out. It has helped me tremendously in my project management, my organization. I really like being able to basically just like have a stream of consciousness, just write down what I'm thinking and then say, hey, ChatGPT or Claude or, whatever version you're using, can you help me organize this into projects? And can you help me maybe build a schedule out of this? And can you maybe help me have some semblance of control over my life? It is a force multiplier. The other areas, so we built a couple GPTs that, again, if you're a subscriber, you get access to help with exercise design and to help with, building out your messaging for iPause and other mass notification systems. It just, from someone who worked in a single person emergency management shop for 7 years, and even when I worked for larger agencies, they were a little bit larger. They weren't huge. There wasn't dozens of people. You have to wear a lot of hats. And what that means is, especially early on in the start of a disaster, it can be really hard to sort of prioritize, what do I need to do first, right? Because you've got the people who are asking for help, you've got the resources asking where to go, and you've got to like lay a foundation for that response. Like, how are we structuring this? Like, who's in control? What are the, how extensive is the disaster? How complex? All these things that are hitting you all at the same time, and you're just trying to make sense of it. So that means you have this like lag from the incident to when you're actually starting to respond. That makes it really difficult. I think AI is going to cut that lag significantly down. Even things like I love checklists. I can build checklists into AI to keep me in check and ask the questions and then respond, if I'm give an answer that's outside of the normal spec, or it's, contingent on the event that we're in. And it's dynamic and it's thinking with me. Just being able to expedite your from left of boom into response in as short a period as possible. I think you're going to see that dramatically increase. I've already seen some public safety agencies or software integrating AI in different ways. Interestingly, there's some hesitation I've noticed from some companies about using it or even putting it in their system. It is a newer tech, but it's pretty mature at this point. And, being able to build your own custom GPTs or using either ChatGPT or another, LLM or natural language processing model type thing, and using your data for that, so that, it's not pulling from all the data, it's pulling from your stuff. Like, that's not hard anymore. It's actually quite achievable. I mean, anyone can basically build their own GPT through the through ChatGPT now with their builder. And a large company, especially a tech company, should be able to tap into the API pretty quickly to start to take advantage of it. So, anyways, AI, I know I talk about it all the time. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I think this in next year, you're going to see leaps and bounds of improvement in both the AI and how we're using it in emergency management. Again, if you're not doing this, you're not going to get replaced by AI. But if you are not tapped into this, you're going to be replaced by someone who is. And so, everyone, I don't care how much of a Luddite you are, you got to we have got to move beyond the pen and paper method. And I know, okay, power outage, comm outage, technology can fail us. It's just not really true anymore. Even the state of Vermont, I remember growing up, we used to have power outages all the time. Green Mountain Power is like trying to build these intelligent like microgrids throughout the state and build resilience. We haven't lost power even in the windstorm. I mean, we had a gust of at least 75 miles an hour. I think it was higher than that, but the closest weather station is at the Franklin County Airport, which is pretty far away. I know my patio furniture literally disappeared, just vaporized, gone. My playset got blown to smithereens, which sucks. My kids still use that quite a bit. And now it's just in shards in our yard. But we didn't lose power. We didn't lose internet. I was talking to my neighbors. I was talking, to the fire chief and stuff. There was all sorts of cool, like even day before, like coordinating ahead of time. We can rely on this technology now. It's flexible. It's resilient. So take advantage of it. Lean into it. More technology. I think software. The sort of critical information systems that we've relied on. Have felt pretty archaic and old and outdated. I think you're going to start to see, quite a few evolutions in that. Because there's more ways to respond to disasters now, right? You're not sort of stuck in the early days of like, this is the path, right? There's more systems out there. There are companies who are really trying to take advantage of, technology and try to make managing it through technology more approachable and easier. Viochi, I just saw, I think they are 10 years old, 15 years old. I remember when that came out and it was just so different and so flexible. Noggin, that's what we used when I was at the university. Again, like almost like a sandbox approach. And they did a fairly big refresh a few years ago. But even companies that like anyone who's used it, Everbridge was looking a bit dated. And now they're moving into Everbridge 360, trying to take all of their different components and sort of build it into a single system and really set up the single pane of glass. I really liked Visual Command Center as an approach. If you use Everbridge, you sort of get a taste of that with the universe now, but the VCC, if you tap into it, you get intelligence. You can run your incidents through there. It's all sort of map based. And I think 360, if I understand it correctly, will be taking advantage of that. So you'll have your messaging, your incident management, all sort of on one platform. And I think their goal is to pull in all of their different platforms into that. There's companies like FloodMap. You'll be hearing from them shortly. We recorded an episode just before the new year. I love FloodMap. I have known those folks for several years now. As soon as when they first started coming into the US, I was given an opportunity to chat with them. And they are doing just amazing stuff when it comes to flood mapping and prediction, forecasting floods, tracking floods as they happen very accurately using lots of different technology, high resolution, highly accurate. If you're not familiar with them, definitely check them out. The other thing that I see is like sort of a democratization of technology now. So like things that used to be, you'd have to be like the biggest of the big agencies to have access to, you can now get like fairly affordably. And I think there's a lot of companies that are trying to, take advantage of that and build on it. There's a company that I've been chatting with called Beacon. I highly recommend you check that out. I think it's Beakon. they're doing like this really cool, super granular intelligence platform, but not just pulling from social media. If you've used some of the other platforms that are like entirely just like AI is pulling out of social media and thinking it knows what you want to hear, and you get just so much noise. They're using like 911 data, really, really cool stuff. Planet Labs, the company, you can, basically anyone, relatively could afford to buy in near real time satellite imagery. And they have all sorts of like really cool multi-band, radar-based imagery. They're updating their platforms all the time. If you pay lots of money, you can even get like on demand. You can tell it where to go. So lots of improvement in software, but more importantly, like democratizing that software so that even small agencies can start to take advantage of it. I think that's going to be really, really important. Like even things like giant voice systems. I used a portable giant voice system the other day. Not the other day. This was like months ago. But anyways, I could lie. You wouldn't know. But it was months ago. I'll be honest. It was one of the Genesis LRAD portable giant voice systems. Just that technology. Like I know it sounds like silly, but overhead sirens and loudspeakers have gotten much better. And you can reach much larger portions of your population with I like the giant voice system because it doesn't, let's say we do lose all the technology, right? Being able to pick up a microphone and very loudly tell your community what's happening and what you need them to do, still super important. So, all right, moving on next, emergency management practices. I think we're finally on the cusp of breaking the old, rigid, and sort of ancient emergency management stuff we've done forever. I've noticed, especially since CPG 101 basically said, hey, it's okay. I know FEMA, they'll say you can do ICS in any way that you want. But of course, most of us default to the good old fashioned ICS that we've known for decades. When CPG 101 said, hey, mission support model, this is actually a pretty cool approach to this, and it's a little bit more flexible. I've seen a ton of agencies move towards that. And even since that move, now I've seen agencies sort of saying like, well, okay, if that worked really well, like maybe there's ways for us to operate and do things in a way that is more effective and less rigid than ICS, right? With the newer technology and with all of us sort of working in a decentralized, physically disparate, way, of course, through remote work and, just the ability to run everything off of a smart device, I think you're going to see emergency management really start to innovate in how we're doing it. Being more flexible and resilient, and leveraging technology to make us more effective. It's happening. I think it's going to happen even more. We have the next generation of emergency managers is fully in here. They were born into technology. The internet, they'd never known a time when there was no internet. I knew a period of several years where, there was no such thing as the internet and I didn't have access to it. So I'm like the bridging the gap of this. I can't wait till the next gen comes in here and just blows up, even what we've done. So I'm super excited for that. And you'll see, we have some stuff that we're kind of trying to pitch and propose in this area. And if you're interested in this, please reach out to us. We'd love to find more partners to just break the system. Training and exercising. This has been a particular area of interest for us and for me. As far back as I have done emergency management, I really made an effort to do training and exercising differently because I am an easily distractible and bored individual. And so anytime I ran an exercise and anytime I ran training, I always had sound effects, I had video, I had humor. I wanted it to be immersive. I wanted it to be engaging. My presentation style, I really tried to use pictures and moving images and stuff versus lots of words. Death by PowerPoint, kill it. I'm done. I want the death of death by PowerPoint. I know that there's limitations, but we're really getting to the point now where there is a lot of really fun and exciting ways to get trained. And I think I posted this a couple weeks ago, but gamifying emergency management. I have been working on a whole bunch of different approaches to this. One of our friends, Anthony Escato, sent something the other day. They had a board game that they're playing. This is for NISM, doing a cybersecurity incident. And I gotta let me call out her name. Let's see, Victoria Kluge, who works for, I might be saying her name. She works for City of Atlanta as an exercise. I think she's maybe the exercise manager, but she posted this really cool thing that they were doing using, I think it was like a Dungeons and Dragons approach to emergency. Yes, there it is. So you should look her up. But basically, they created, it's called Rolling for Resilience, and they built like a Dungeons and Dragons approach to emergency management, which I think is awesome. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna forget her last name. Tyga Christie, who she did this presentation last year at the Vermont Preparedness Conference, and it was about how when she was in Portland, they had used a performance, like it wasn't really like a play. It was pretty interactive, but they ran through basically if the Cascadia earthquake occurs, and Portland, Oregon is highly susceptible to earthquake damage. It's essentially like an island. There's bridges all around the city, and you can look at the reports of what will happen when that eventually does occur. And they were trying to communicate to people like, you need to be prepared. You need to think about this. And that's hard for a lot of folks, because if you live in an environment where you feel safe and you're kind of complacent because you're just comfortable, you can't even begin to imagine how bad it can be. And so they're like, well, how do we maybe convey this in a way that is approachable and understandable? So they made a play to basically run an exercise. That's essentially what they were doing, was running an exercise for the community. And they would talk about the event. They used all real world landmarks for their city. So, they're like, oh man, this road is blocked. There was a building that came down. The hospital is overrun. We can't even get to the hospital. We have people who are hurt, and, we need to figure out, how do we get them to help, or can we do this ourselves? And they immersed people. It was like they were talking to a public forum. The earthquake happens, and you get your community together, and you're all just trying to work through it. So during the performance, like, people are getting up in the audience and performing and saying, like, well, I just went down there, like the road's closed and there's power lines down, and there's dead bodies in the road and stuff. So I think there's a lot of people who are really pushing the envelope in this area. Again, I'm a tech geek, so I tend to put a lot of weight on technology, but the Dungeons and Dragons, all you need is essentially, someone who knows how to play it, some dice to, roll, and, have a good time and work through it. I think moving away from the big, huge, extravagant events as well. So one thing that we're kind of trying to bridge the gap in is you come into emergency management training. There's a ton of introductory training, and then there's this just giant void between that and then like the executive and advanced level training. And so for a lot of folks, they're not able to stay competent or proficient in their skills because there's not a lot to offer once you do. You can do the EMI courses and, sure, TEACs and some of the others, but there's a point where you're kind of like, well, it feels like it's either rehashing stuff I've already done, which is fine, or it's just like, this is boring and I've done this before. And yeah, I'll go through it again because I do want to stay up to date and keep my muscles flexed on this, but you atrophy and you become weaker as an emergency manager. So again, we're trying to find ways to solve this through like our little audio tabletop exercises that we've started to release on the subscription. There's a new one coming out about cyber. And then, stuff that you can do in your own time and with smaller teams. I think that's something that, we should be working towards. Having the huge exercises, you got to do those every once in a while. So you bring everyone together and see how it all works. But those take months, years to prepare for. Some of the best training I've done in the state and the best exercising is our CATX, catastrophic exercises, or the MOBEXs with the guard. But, those are every 3-4 years. They're really expensive. And the truth is, when the exercise gets that big, you have a very small role in this. Back to emergency management practices. I want to foot stomp this too. Get out from behind your desk. Okay. Stop waiting for the big one to try your skills. There are structure fires every day in your communities. There are infrastructure failures. You can do a lot of different stuff to help out in those smaller incidences that translate into the big ones. I am actually a big proponent of doing a lot more small stuff versus waiting a long time and doing the one big thing. And that's for training and exercising. That's for just general, emergency management. It's like building, right? Like if you're getting into woodworking, I've probably used this analogy before. You're not going to build a house for your first project. You're probably going to build like a pencil holder or a, cutting board, something that is fairly small, fairly easy to work with. And that's how you sort of build your skills. And you might build 1,000 cutting boards. Now you're ready to build a desk, a table. Then you build 1,000 tables. Then you're ready to build, a room, redesign a room. Then you could build a house, after a long, long time. But you have to just sort of like constantly, and even while I know tons of people who build houses and build huge buildings, and they still like to do cutting boards and the small stuff. That's like how you get all your gifts and everything for, that's what they're doing for Christmas gifts and stuff. So I'm just saying, I think we should be more active, and I think we should be better integrated with our first response agencies and getting out there and doing more stuff. Go to the scene, ride a fire truck, ride a police car, know what the people that you're going to be working with are doing. One thing that I sort of found, I was a responder who came into emergency management, and I recognized when I first came in that there was way too many fire EMS chiefs, police chiefs, military, officers who retired and were running emergency management. And they were basically running it how they did when they were the chief. And we were like, okay, this doesn't really work because it's a lot of tactical and not enough strategy. Because that's what emergency management is: strategy and coordination and, the higher level of it. But now I'm sort of feeling like we've swung maybe too far in the other direction, where some emergency managers may have never gotten that response experience, which is fine. That's not to say it makes them a better or worse emergency manager, but having your response experience, you've been through, thousands of mini disasters, and it gives you comfort. It gives you confidence in responding. And I think we need to find some sort of middle ground now to make sure that our emergency managers understand, the resources that they're, potentially assigning and sending, as well as the language and working with them. Plus, it builds a better relationship, right? When we're all in the trenches and we're suffering together, that builds stronger bonds. So we're going to have someone on, I think, next week from NYSEM. He's a city interagency coordinator. I basically have built my approach to emergency management off of NYSEM's, New York City Emergency Management's city interagency model, because I have always worked in small or single person shops. So I could stand up an EOC, but it's just going to be me sitting in a room. So many, many times I would go to the scene and set up with the unified command or adjacent to them, and they would offload all of the other stuff that they don't need to do onto me, the non-tactical stuff. And the, helping them plan for multiple operating periods or resource management. Let them deal with actual life-saving activities. A chief having to come up with oh God, I got to come up with, mass care because this apartment building evacuated a bunch of people. I need to make notifications to the community. I need to call the state watch officer. I got to do all this stuff, versus like, oh yeah, I still have people inside this burning building putting the fire out. And it looks like the building maybe is doing some funky stuff. So I don't want it to fall and hurt my folks. You can do that. It is totally okay for you to be on scene. I'm going to say it. I had a cruiser when I was the university emergency manager, and I responded on scene to law enforcement incidents, to facilities incidents where we had infrastructure failures. I was supporting the communities around me. I was supporting the other colleges in the area that didn't have the same resources that I did. And it made me a better emergency manager. It also meant I had a very deep bench of people that I could call on when I needed help. So get out there, do the job. Let's change how we're doing stuff. All right, finally, communication systems. The number one AAR bullet, I can't talk. First off, guys, see this radio? This is how it's supposed to be held. If you're holding it like this or like this, it's not going to work. Antenna up, propagates out this way, radiates, I think technically is the term. And this is how it's supposed to work. But using this as a model as well. This is the XL200 from L3 Harris. I love this radio. They have another one that's one size bigger, the XL400, which is NFPA certified. We got to burn one at a training, and we threw it in the water, and like we're calling it, was really cool. And you could just beat the ever-living snot out of it. And L3 Harris let us do that, which I think is the most fun thing ever. I love just beating the absolute snot out of technology. But this is like what future radios are. It's got VHF, UHF, 700, 800, LTE, Wi-Fi, all in one device. And this one's like, it's affordable. Like I've had other multi-band radios where, you end up basically blowing your entire budget on one radio. But this is again, another force multiplier. You as an emergency manager, in a large incident where tons and tons of people show up, maybe you'll have enough people with enough radios that you can make interagency communication work. But for a lot of emergency managers, you are it. So being able to talk over multiple bands, using potentially a Wi-Fi or LTE, cell service to communicate with a push to talk is hugely valuable. And it's no longer like for the upper tier agencies, really any agency could afford at least a couple of these and not break the budget. But now you have like Starlink is starting to be built into cell phones. The SOS on your iPhone connects to a satellite. I know there was a whole bunch of news that came out, I think yesterday or the day before, about texting over Starlink on cell phones. We're not going to be too far behind before voice, push to talk, and data over satellites. So you'll never be disconnected. Even the regular huge Starlink systems, our state urban search and rescue team just got their Starlink system. We also got two of the I think they're called comm runners. It's the pod runner basically set up, but it's got FirstNet, and I think one of them has a Starlink antenna on it as well. This is stuff that used to take a FEMA MERS truck to accomplish, and now you can just basically pack it into the back of an SUV or carry it right on your hip. I mean, I doubt it's going to be much longer before these have satellite access as well. And these are computer based. So like as you're, moving towards, what the next step is, software based radios can be upgraded and changed. So it's not like before where like if your radio was outdated, it was dead. Firmware updates might be able to add all sorts of new features to this. So really, really cool. And the other thing that I think is going to come with this is a huge push for more sensors everywhere. Internet of Things, if you're not familiar with it, basically you can take sensors, put them in the little tiny, either a platform that already exists, like a cell phone, or use like Raspberry Pi or their own, proprietary, chipset and board, and build a sensor that you can put anywhere, especially now if you have Starlink and you could transmit data. Flood Map talked about how they use, agencies can go out and buy these sensors that you can put along, areas that are not covered by the national data set of flood map sensors or flooding sensors. So now you have stream gauge data for areas that never did before at an affordable rate, and you can move it, right? Like, so the other thing that happens with rivers and streams is they actually migrate a little bit. And so you're having fixed base sites may not work that well. You're tracking drought. Drought comes and goes. You might be in an area where like you've set up all this amazing drought monitoring technology, and then the drought goes away for a decade. Or you get a drought in an area that wasn't anticipated, and now you don't have any data. Wildfire threats. You're definitely going to see tons of innovation in this. Being able to put wildfire detection, whether it's camera, like thermal cameras or, particulate or whatever, plus the monitoring stuff, the humidity, temperature, winds, in a compact little device that you can move around. Maybe you get hundreds of these, place them in critical areas because like, holy crap, the fire threat now is approaching the, wildland urban interface of a major city, and we want to make sure we're staying ahead of this. Oh, cool. The threat has been, diminished. Now we can move it somewhere else where it's valuable. So a lot of Internet of Things. So that's where I'm going to leave it. I hope you like this episode. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What's coming? What is the future? What are you excited about in 2024? How are you preparing? And what are we going to do better this year than we did last year? What were the lessons learned, and what are your areas for improvement that we're going to launch into? So like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll talk to you next time.
Hey, we just want to do a quick pause X to thank our sponsors, L3 Harris, Proper, Paladin by Acela, Impulse, Doberman Emergency Management, and especially all of you who have been donating to our podcast. Thank you for helping us boost the signal.